All right, we're back, and these are definitely set up. They're not tacky to touch anymore. They are quite firm, so we should be able to line this board and slide it back into place. We want to make sure that we didn't forget any bits and pieces as we're doing this. Not that we couldn't take it apart and put them back, but it's always annoying to assemble something and then realize that you forgot some bits and pieces that you needed. These are very fine screws, and so I'm a little concerned. I may have put too much glue on, because if you see the gap that's kind of right here, this gap is pretty significant. I'm thinking that my screws can tension it up, but you don't want to deform the PCB too far. So we're going to do our best and hope, but I'm going to be very careful to not over tighten these screws, running the risk of stripping out the plastic from the actual case of this little toy itself. So we'll just go ahead and put these into place. While I'm doing that, I did find a bright white LED. This is a 13,000 MCD LED. I actually got these it was actually a weird thing. I had a random package show up at my house from a supplier I'd used, and I opened it up, and it was 1,000 white LEDs. I'd never ordered LEDs from them. I had no idea why they showed up. I called them, and they said, well, it wasn't worth it for me to ship them back. So I've been dealing with this 1,000 white LEDs ever since, and they've been great, because whenever I need something to illuminate or something to show something or just a tiny little bright point of light, I have that available kind of at any time. Okay, so as I tighten these up, oh, I don't like that. That one's biting weird. I'm not going to over tighten that yet. As I'm tightening these things up, I'm going to do it kind of like you would the lug nuts on your truck or your car, where you do a little bit on each one, because if you put all of the force on one, tightening it down, then it has to support all of the flex of the board, and it's more likely to strip out where it's being screwed into in that situation. Versus if I do a little bit on each one, they're pulling together, and no one of them has more extreme torque than any other one. So that's kind of a nice thing. That's why I'm going around and around one at a time. Pro tip: if you ever have to change your own tire, make sure that you don't tighten one lug nut as tight as possible and then the others. Get them snug and then do one at a time. In fact, there's a pattern they recommend where you do one on one side, the one directly across, and then shift over by one, do it, and then the one directly across from that one, and so on and so forth. Kind of generating a star like you probably learned how to do in grade school. Okay, I think that's as tight as I'm confident putting those things in right now. So let's see what we got for our display. Power this bad boy up. And it didn't do quite what we wanted. I definitely got to push harder to actually get that to display. You can see I'm still missing pixels. So the next option, and what I'm going to do next, is instead of supporting it from the front, I'm actually going to add, as I assemble it, I'm going to add something here that pushes firmly against this back side to kind of keep that screen together. So I'm actually going to add a spacer onto the inside right here. But before we do that, I want to definitely work on this LED and make sure that we have that super bright light. So let's see how bright it is right now. If I turn on the image light. Okay, so it's pretty bright. I can look right at it though. The camera may or may not show it very well. Doesn't really hurt my eyes. On the other hand, if I take this bad boy and I put it in parallel, so you may get access to all the right spots here. Being careful not to burn out the system. That one is much brighter by comparison. So if I sub this one out for this one, I should be able to get a much brighter light coming through my little display thing, so that I'm able to show off the cool pictures that this thing has built in. I gotta go solder this thing on. A couple points to remember, obviously, with all LEDs. When you get through LED, they come with a longer lead, which is traditionally, I don't know if that's showing up very well, the longer lead here, which is traditionally the positive lead, though it's not always guaranteed to be. Also, a lot of LEDs have a flat side, Again, not really a challenge to kind of show you right now, but there is a slight flat side on this one, and that usually indicates the negative side. You always want to check the data sheet for your specific part. Again, I have 1,000 of these, or had 1,000 of these, so I have a pretty good handle how this works. But I'm going to definitely hook this up there on this one, which looks like it was set up so that this lead here is the positive, and this lead over here with the green is the ground lead. So I'm going to take this over to my soldering iron and replace that LED with this LED, and I'll be back.